not be any interference within the audience. Very good afternoon to all of you. To begin with, let me express my gratitude to all the organizers for inviting me to this wonderful seminar on an equally wonderful topic. But my problem, as rightly pointed out by the chair, is that I am the opening batsman in the post-lunch session. So my all sincere efforts which went into making this research paper that I have pulled through, all those efforts might go, in vain, because there is a possibility of my research paper turning into a lullaby for all of you. So I don't know how to overcome that, but I mean, as a lame sort of effort, I would like to be as entertaining as possible, academically, of course, so that everyone can connect to what I'm saying. And the first step towards that would be, I will not be reading out the entire paper from here. Instead, I will be discussing a few areas connected to my research paper, which I'm supposed to present today. To do that, I'll start with a poem which was written by a Black American poet, Maya Angelou, written in a completely different context. But you will find this poem very well connected to the overall theme of the seminar, because this speaks about the existence of the Black people in America vis-a-vis vis-a-vis the Western culture. Now, this poem will give you an idea of how identity, because my paper is primarily on identity discourse and how this citizenship nationality interface is connected to the process of identity construction. So this poem connects identity to collective struggle. Now I start the poem out of the hearts of history's shame. I hope students will be paying heed to it. Out of the hearts of history's shame, I rise. This is a very popular poem. Many of us are already familiar with this poem. Up from a past that is rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that is wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. So you can, of course, I'm sure all of you have understood why I have decided to start my presentation with this poem, because this perfectly explains the relationship between cultural and collective struggle and the process of identity formation. So we, more often than not, say that nationality is a stable source of identity. But when we enter the discourse of diaspora, the theory starts faltering, because nationality there cannot provide stable identity to the individuals who have migrated into a foreign land. Even though they have earned citizenship, legal rights to live in that country. And by virtue of holding a passport, they have become nationals of that particular country. But when it comes to the cultural level, they constantly face cultural otherization and consequent marginalization. And especially if they are women, I mean the individuals who are migrating into the Western land, especially if they are women first, secondly if they are Muslim, thirdly if they are coming from the Arab land, they face multiple levels of marginalization despite the fact that they have foreign passport. I mean, they not foreign passport, they have the nationality that is supposed to be the stable source of identity. So how this marginalization happens to those individuals coming from the Arab land, and how they negotiate with this process of marginalization and come out of the trauma that is associated with the entire process. This paper is about that, and for that I have chosen, I will not be very long because the chair has asked me to finish as early as possible because we are already running late. So I'll give you a couple of examples from the writings of the Arab female authors. And for that I have chosen two authors, one from Egypt, the other one from Jordan. Adab Sweif is a very, very well-known, internationally acclaimed author from Egypt whose family migrated into England and became British nationals. And then that will be followed by Fadia Fakir, who is also from Jordan and whose family also migrated to England. So there is a thematic affinity in the writings of these two authors. And see, I have written about what identity is, how it functions, how the process changes when it enters the diaspora discourse, but I'm leaving that out. I'll straight away go into a text and see. This is a collection of short stories entitled Aisha. From the name itself, you can understand it's a Muslim name. Aisha is the female protagonist. In all the short stories within that particular collection, the title of which is Aisha. Now there, Aisha's family has become British nationals. They enjoy equal rights over there, at least on paper. But when Aisha enters public domain in the form of school, she is a child. She is going to school, and see the conversation that she is having with her Western classmates. And you will understand how marginalization operates in the diasporic context. You carefully listen to two very small passages, one from Aisha by Adab Sweif, and the second one, equally interesting if not more, is My Name is Salma. This is a novel. And from the title itself, you can understand that this must be about identity. Because in the title itself, the protagonist is exerting her Arab Muslim identity. My name is Salma. Right? Now, I have chosen two very small portions from these two texts. First from Aisha, and see the conversation in school, only 5-6 lines. The friend sitting next to her in a class is asking Aisha, where are you from? She says, from Egypt. That is where they have those pharaohs and crocodiles and things. So see, the image of Egypt in the Western, collective Western psyche, it is a land of pharaohs. So the entire existence is reduced to certain symbols. And then, do you go to school on a camel? Do you go to school on a camel? Stereotyping. How stereotypical images are operating in the process of knowing the other. Do you go to school on a camel? She says, no. Do you live in a tent? Do you live in a tent? She says, no. And final question, very interesting. How many wives does your father have? She answers, one, of course. So this is a kind of image that the Western children, let alone adults, Western children have about the people coming from Arab and the Arab culture. We are saying that nationality is a source of identity, so they are British nationals. But when they are entering the domain, the public domain, they are constantly otherized, and you can imagine what kind of an impression it will create in the mind of the young child. She must be going through a traumatic experience. This is a process of otherization. Otherization starts right from school. Then it continues. School is a moderately educated place compared to other public forums. So if this happens within school campuses, then we can imagine what may happen outside school. Now, what negative impact or disastrous impact this can have on a child who has a delicate mind? I mean, we can easily imagine the kind of impact this will create on her overall being. It may lead to self-destruction because she knows that she is rejected by the community she has gelled in the host land. So this is collective rejection, cultural rejection, of course. And this collective rejection leads to individual marginalization. So what is the way out? How can such individuals coming from the Arab land fight this process of marginalization, this, umbrella sort of, sphere of marginalization, process of marginalization? The answer is very clear, and the answer has been given by Fadia Fakir in a different context altogether. In My Name is Salma. See, the interesting fact is, Fadia Fakir writes My Name is Salma, where she clearly exerts her Arab identity. Rather, she celebrates her Arab identity. But when it is published in the West, the title is changed. Because, see, they have serious problem with an Arab woman exerting our identity. So they change it. They exoticize the book. And, the crying dove, sort of a title they choose. The crying dove is a marginalized woman, the kind of image that they nurture in the West about Arab women. They are victims, they are marginalized, to say them they must be crying dove. But this title, My Name is Salma, is a resistance to that. Because this is a celebration of identity. Which identity? Arab identity. And there is a conversation between Salma, who had to migrate to England. And once she migrates into England, her name changes from Salma, she becomes Sally. Sally Asher. So the process of transformation is complete. Apparently, Salma turns into Sally. So nationality has started working, citizenship has started working. But internally, when you go to the cultural level, you will see that the transformation has not happened at all. The Arab woman, the fictional character here, the Arab woman speaks, and speaks in a unique way. And I will read out a very small passage from My Name is Salma. It happens between the doctor. Salma is ill, so she has gone to visit a doctor. And the conversation happens between Salma and the Western doctor, the British doctor. What can I do for you, Miss Asher? Doctor asks. What can I do for you, Miss Asher? Now, please listen very, very carefully. Her answers, Salma's answers. Salma says, I ill. My heart beat. no sleep. Doctor says, any physical symptoms? Salma says, seek eyes, arms and legs see. Sweat, heartbeat, cannot sleep. Then the doctor says, if your heart is beating, then it must be in good condition. Salma's response is, but I ill. But I ill. Please, today alive, tomorrow dead. Me. Now this is Salma's response. And this is what we get from this conversation. Please try to understand. What the hostland is trying to do is to incorporate or to snatch away the identity of the migrant individual, identity of the Arab individual. They are actually devouring the identity of the Arab individual by forcing an alien identity on them. So what is the way to resist that process of enforcement? How can Salma, the poor guy, the poor woman, absolutely powerless compared to the Western people there, how can she put up resistance against this process of homogenization? She does it linguistically. See, I mean, while she was giving an introduction on the first speaker, that's me, she said, I have done a course in Arabic language. Yes, I have done a course in Arabic language. Why, my PhD thesis was on Arabic literature. Arab literature rather, Arab diasporic literature. Now, I never understood why they are speaking in this manner. So I thought there must have some linguistic angle to it. So I started learning Arabic. And while learning Arabic, I mean, those who know Arabic, I can see some faces, they know Arabic. They know that Arabic language doesn't have two verbs, be verb and have verb. I say, my name is Debabrata, I am Debabrata. In Arabic, I will say, I Debabrata. See what Salma says. Salma says, I ill doctor. She says, seek eyes, sweat, heartbeat. I ill, today alive, tomorrow dead. She doesn't use deliberately. She doesn't use be and have verb. And through this, she is exerting her Arab identity against the Western onslaught, cultural onslaught. And towards the end, if we go to the conclusion of this novel, I would ask all of you to read My Name is Salma. This is a very short novel, almost a novella. You'll enjoy thoroughly. You'll fall in love with Arab literature. When she, towards the end of the novel, she decides to go back to Arab, wherefrom she was thrown out by the patriarchal fundamentalist Arab culture. But from that culture itself, she learned resistance. So she uses the positive sides of the Arab culture and she becomes a dissenting voice even within the Western context. So she uses her Arab training to exert her Arab identity, to retain her cultural identity. So Fadia Fakir, and at the end of the novel, she once again changes her name. She dies there. She is being killed by her own brother for breaking the patriarchal code of conduct. My presentation is done. So, what she does by going back to Arab, by going back to Jordan, and there she is gunned down. But in the process, what she does is she goes back to her root. Mudo mein wapas jao, mudo. I was asking some students, what do you call shaker? What do you call root? They say in Odia, they said muda. I said we all have to go back to our muda. So in the novel Fadia Fakir's, in Fadia Fakir's My Name is Salma, Salma decides to go back to the Mullah. And that Mullah provides the stable source of identity to her. So this is the way. So going back to the root, this is the way both Fadia Fakir and Adab Sweep have invented the process of counter-hegemony. Thank you very much.
So definitely nobody has fallen asleep because of the interesting interaction and the way he told a story, but he never allowed you to sleep, to question identities, how it has been negotiated both in the third world countries, and if a person from the third world country goes to the Western world also, how he also suffers from that identity crisis. Definitely, if you have questions, reserve it for the end of this session. At the end, you can question him. We have another speaker who is going to speak through the. She has already joined. So Puspita will introduce the speaker.
Thank you, sir, for your enlightening and thought-provoking lecture. Our second speaker of the session is Dr. Shirisha Telugu Madam, Assistant Professor in the Department of English at the University of Hyderabad. Dr. Telugu is an Assistant Professor in the Department of English at the University of Hyderabad. She is the co-coordinator of the IOE-funded ongoing project titled Queer Spaces in Sports, an ethnographic study. Dr. Telugu's research interest encompass post-colonial studies, Indian writing in English, American literature, South Asian studies, the South Asian diaspora, and themes of migration and displacement. Her recent publication includes an edited book titled There is some technical glitch. Okay. Dr. Shirisha Telugu is an assistant professor in the Department of English at University of Hyderabad. She is the co-coordinator of the IOE-funded ongoing project titled Queer Spaces in Sports, an ethnographic study. Dr. Telugu's research interest encompass post-colonial studies, Indian writing in English, American literature, South Asian studies, the South Asian diaspora, and themes of migration and displacement. Her recent publication includes an edited book titled Indian Literatures in Diaspora, an article titled Between Citizenships, Questions of Home Among the Burmese Indian Repatriates, and exploring the aesthetics and ethics of displacement in refugee and repatriate narratives. Dr. Telugu's academic influence extends beyond national borders. She has contributed to various international conferences, workshops, short-term courses, and faculty development programs focused on MOOCs, e-content development, online pedagogy, and open educational resources. Now, I'd like to request our chair of the session to proceed the session.
Such a wonderful. marginalization, acculturation that are usually associated with migration. So there's anyone who is working in the area of migration studies to agree and understand that these are the recurrent themes in diasporic literature. So migration, once defined as the crossing of borders between states, is now understood as a social process, a basic human condition of human societies. So it begins with departure from parental households, that is when we move from what we call a home, ranges as far as from transcontinental or let's say transoceanic moves, which I think is the geographic scope that might be the same move for any human being who wish to migrate. So Indian migration, I think, is not a singular narrative of movement from one area to another, from one geography to another. It is instead a long history of displacement, survival, aspiration, and negotiation, which I think is shaped first by the empire, later by the nation states, and now by global capitalism. And I think the similar crux area is surrounding through all these ideas of looking at the empire, the nation, and globalization. So from the 19th century indenture labor system to the 21st century diaspora, Indian mobility has continuously reconfigured the idea of nation, again, home and exchange between the idea of nation, belonging and identity, or at times the political identity that we call as citizenship. If you look into the early history of migration, or to understand the conceptual framework of migration, the four broad ways of India moving is quite essential for all of us. I see this through an Eurocentric perspective. Indians were highly considered as static. The English said that Indians never moved. They say that there was very little mobility among the Indians in the past, and they hardly moved beyond 20 to 30 miles from their birthplace. But the migration histories indicate that Indians have been highly mobile. How did Buddhism travel to other parts of the world? How did Islam reach Indonesia? Vinay Bilal, the historian, says that Islam reached Indonesia not from Arabia but from India. Indians are those who introduced, let's talk about the religions like Hinduism, Islam, or Buddhism in Indonesia. And these histories are quite fascinating to look at. So to examine that early migration, we also need to understand the Indian Ocean trading system, which began roughly in the 2nd century CE, the common era, and lasted until the 14th or 15th century. So to look at just an outer world map, and you notice that an extensive trade system existed from India to Southeast Asia, to the Gulf and the east of Africa, and there was also evidence of settled Indian communities on the east coast of Africa, perhaps as far as, let's say, 500 BCE. So the history suggests that there has been considerable movement, unlike what the English had an opinion about us. Then we have the other set of migrations after the transmission of Buddhism, the Indian Ocean trading system, followed by the Indianization of Southeast Asia, and that is in the 18th century. There were several strands of migrations, including the Lascars, or seamen who worked on British ships. So these people, the seamen of the Lascars, would get out of the ships as soon as the ships would dock at the seaports in London and melt away with the crowds. What happened to these people? What is the genealogy about these people? The present study on Lascars is trying to trace the lives of these group of seamen. It's not the kind of a concentrated group of people that I'm referring to. It's not a group of seamen, but the limitations that were involved during the time of migration make it challenging to trace their genealogy. However, a large group of people began moving out of the Indian subcontinent through the indentured labor system, which started in 1834 and lasted till 1970. And this is where our meeting begins. As I said, I give you an overview about India movie and then come and look at the concentrated group of people moving as part of the indentured system. Indentured system began after the abolition of slavery in the 1830s. So plantation owners in colonies like Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, Tobago, they were all falling in short of labor for the formerly enslaved people after the abolition, now who are free. They demanded high wages for their labor. So many planters did not want to pay these high wages, so they tried to indenture labor as a new system of cheap labor. The historian Hugh Tinker later described indentured labor as a new form of slavery, and this system, as I have already pointed out, was officially abolished in 1970. So in the first half of the 20th century, up to the 1960s, migration took place for many reasons, both voluntary and involuntary. So a significant shift occurred in 1965 when immigration reforms in countries like USA and UK opened new opportunities for migrants. Many Indian students went abroad for higher education, although some initially returned to India. A large number eventually settled overseas. So during this period, nearly half of the graduates from the Indian Institute of Technology, the IITs, received visas to study or work in the United States. So this large-scale migration of skilled professionals is what we call as the brain drain. I hope you all have heard this term called brain drain. And this was not just limited to movement towards the United Kingdom or the United States, but continued to Australia and Canada. And then we have another phase of migration to Gulf countries, which also increased, especially after the mid-1970s oil boom. Countries such as Dubai, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, all these countries attracted two types of labor. First wave is the blue collar job people, and under this phase, we look at the construction workers, the manual laborers from India, the housemaids, the drivers, the working class community of people moving to these countries for the sake of their jobs. People from not just India, but we also have laborers moving from Pakistan, Nepal, and Bangladesh. Then second, we have another category of people, the white-collar professionals, whose migration also contributed to the phenomenon of what we can say the brain drain, where you have the working class, the educated working class people now moving to the left. So if you look at the idea of diaspora or migration, as many theorists have noted, it refers to individuals, it refers to groups, it refers to communities in motion, in mobility, who leave their places of origin. And these movements are propelled for the need of a better life. Why do people move? Why do we move from villages to towns, towns to cities? For better life, for education, for employment opportunities, the quest for settlement. Sometimes we are also forcibly displaced from one's home. So this phenomenon extends beyond the mere physical relocations across nations, countries, or continents, but also it encompasses the traversing of imagined spaces, where here we try to incorporate the notion of home and family. So the displaced or the dislocated people unable to connect to these spaces, create an in-between space. So the intricacies of diaspora involve the interplay between the physical displacement across geographical boundaries and the profound impact on the interconnected realms of identity, belonging, and also cultural continuity. So Stuart Hall, in his seminal work, Cultural Identity and Hybridity, he considers that the position of diaspora to the concepts of alterity and hybridity. So he says that the diasporic identity is continuously producing and reproducing itself. So it's not a kind of a fixed stature. It keeps reproducing, the identity keeps changing. So the concept of identity alters the earlier ideas of migration and celebrates diversity or heterogeneity that we talk about. Out of all of this is where we look at literature that originates from the diaspora, which serves as a primary conduit for comprehending the realization inherent in diasporic experiences. So if you look at the narratives produced by Indian migrants, they have significantly enriched the landscape of English literature. So notably, the historical trajectory of Indian diasporic writing, this parallels the diaspora's very inception. So it's intriguing to recognize that the roots of Indian diasporic literature extend beyond the establishment of diasporic communities. Indian writing in English, when we look into the books, we begin with Saint Deen Muhammad, the travels of Deen Muhammad. The early writings of Saint Deen Muhammad are regarded as significant contributions to the literary canon, as Muhammad's migration to Ireland led to the meticulous documentation of his travels in his book. So, if you look at the book, The Travels of Deen Muhammad, I'm not saying that this is a diasporic text, but it is mostly read as a travelogue, a travel study. But what I intend to say is, the documentation of his experiences subsequently led to a rich tradition of diasporic literature that emerged spanning diverse voices and also experiences. So, Indian diasporic literature initially evolved through oral narratives, but did not have educated people moving as part of indentured labor. So there were oral narratives and songs within the context of the indentured system, gradually transitioning to written forms. So these narratives, if you go through these narratives, you will notice that they often encapsulated the first-hand experience of the diasporic community. So when we look at the migrant experience, it does not end with the initial phase of settlement. It is handed over to the later generations, both consciously or unconsciously. So when you see residing in diaspora entails a navigation to cross-cultural value, but you also notice that here there is a change, fusion, diversity that remain unavoidable. So individuals who are attuned to the intricacies of this cultural shift, they acknowledge the imperative to reaffirm their identity, while simultaneously they seek avenues to express their evolving journey. So it is like they keep recording their experiences, which is passed down to the later generations. And this attempt of theirs has produced several voices in recent years that echo through the medium of literature. So diasporic literature that we see, it becomes a crucial site where these negations are imagined and recorded. So it transforms migration from a kind of a statistical phenomenon into lived experiences. While transforming this, we also notice that these experiences, they register trauma, memory, gender, class, legality, and also the emotional loss. So today, through this lecture of mine, I would like to trace through a set of texts that range from inventor narratives by Bridge Villa, Gayatri Babu, to poetic voices like Peter Jalan, to contemporary diasporic fiction by Jhumpa Lahiri, Mina Alexander, Sujata Bhatt, and finally to Gulf migration in Benjamin's poets. My focus will be on how these texts interrogate these interlinked ideas. Home, nation as something that is agile, and belonging as practice, and citizenship as exclusion. So if you look at the indenture, we find that there was no nation when indenture system was in place. For indentured migrants left before India emerged as a nation state. They were imperial subjects. They were not just the citizens of the country during that time, and as in 1834, they were still the imperial subjects. So the movement was managed by the colonial law and not by rights. So from the start, if you look at Indian migration, it is marked by mobility without citizenship. I received a message to say that I should be concluding it in 5 minutes. I cannot get into the details of the text for you, but you can refer to this text if you are interested. That Police Crime by Bridge Villa or in Gayatri Babu's Indian Women, where here we find that the idea of a nation is missing for these people, the indentured laborers, and belonging becomes provisional. For home is something far away, the nation is something that is unreachable. So the nation does not yet exist as a political reality for these people, but remains a nostalgia. So even in Peter Jalan's poetry, this is what we see, that the nation is missing for these people. But then if you look into the contemporary, when I divide my talk between the old, the new, and the Gulf, the contemporary migrants like Mina Alexander or Sujata Bhatt or even Jhumpa Lahiri, what we see over here is the global mobility is in place, the globalization that we have talked about, and this is what we refer to Brahma's concept of hybridity, where there is an in-betweenness, in between spaces of nations and identities. And these writers, what they do is they construct diaspora as an unstable and also uniquely an ambivalent space, and also try to connect these two countries that they have left, one that they have left behind, the other one that they are living in. And nation for the Gulf, when I say the Gulf diaspora, it's like a cycle that I'm coming back to the indentured system, the labor system, which is also called as a modern day kind of a slave system. So here we find that the Gulf migration is a kind of a labor, again without citizenship. For in the Gulf countries, acquiring the political citizenship is not an equivalent thing as the new diaspora would. So if you connect these three things, nation or home or belonging and identity, for indentured migrants, the nation is absent. As I said, they have gone there as indentured labor, as imperial subjects, so the nation is absent to these migrants. And the contemporary diasporas, or the new diasporas, the nation becomes portable. And for Gulf migrants, the nation is an emotional refugee when host lands reject belonging. So similarly, belonging is something that they try to use it in their day-to-day lives. So any of these texts that you see, from the Gulf or the New or the old diaspora, they teach us one thing, that the nation is imagined, belonging is quite fragile, and the political citizenship is unevenly distributed. So in India diasporic right, to wind up my lecture today, and I have to admit that I have left a lot of things without sharing it with you. But nevertheless, keeping the time constraints in mind, I would like to say that if you get the Indian diasporic writing, it becomes a model archive. Why I say a model archive? Because it asks us how far Indians travel. It's not just a question to limit ourselves to understand how far these mobilities take place, but while traveling, while migrating, what do they lose? What do they transform and also demand along the way? Thank you. Yes, Dr. Sam.
Yes. So we may have some questions from the participants. If there is any, so please stay with us to answer these questions. So now the floor is open for discussion. If any participant and any question, either for Dr. Debabrata or Dr. Sirisha, please feel free to ask. Anybody has any question? I guess both the speakers were very thoroughly
Explained the topic, and there is hardly any question from the audience. And I also believe the audience has released both the speakers. Despite that, if anybody has any question. Yes, Anjum has a question.
Good afternoon, one and all present over here. No, it's okay, sir. I'm Meher Anjum from the department of this department from Masters, and my question is to Mr. Debabrata Das, sir. My question is, why you choose Arab diaspora for your research? Is there any specific kind of anything, or it is something like very personal or anything else?
Thank you, Anjum. Your name is Anjum, no? Have you ever heard anyone doing research on Arab literature in India? Which is why I chose. I mean, we should not be confined within the known territories. We have to look beyond. And as soon as this Arab literature was introduced to me, I took immediate interest in that. And as in my paper, I told you that I took interest in Arabic language too. So it was a decision, it was a tough decision for me because no material was available on this. But it is always better to start doing something than following others. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's a wonderful seminar and the chair. And it's not my question, it's a kind of a incorporation. to what Devrata has said. And Simi has told in the morning that how Derrida is talking about that the host and the hostility, the word is also having the key word host. So that the hostility, how the identity formation, identity, and the host is actually colonizing you through his or her language. So that's the reading from Derrida's point of view. Once again, and the linguistic point that you have raised, that they haven't have the be verb and the have verb, and how language actually the imagination goes forward. That's the wonderful way you have presented your paper. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, sir. Your presentation is really remarkable. As you said that in that presentation you have add two words, be and have, right, to represent himself or herself. But in Indian context, so many communities are being that migrated, so many communities are being marginalized. So according to you, what are the provision that provide by our Indian constitution to those marginalized community, those who are seeking citizenship for India? Take an example of what are the provision that provide by our constitution to those marginalized communities such as Bangladesh or the Muslims or other communities, they are seeking citizenship for our India. So what are the provisions that provide our constitutions to those community, those really need the nationality or the culture of life from Indian context?
Thank you for raising this important question. But the problem is I'm not a social scientist. I'm from humanities background. But I would still tell you to read Article 14 and 15. If you go to Article 14, equality, equal rights have been guaranteed in Article 14 and 15. And then added to that, our preamble is a very, very important part of our constitution. So if you read Article 14 and 15, you will get your answer. Okay. And our constitution has ensured right for all the marginal communities, marginalized communities, but it depends on how it is being implemented. So the problem is at the level of implementation. That is the problem. Yes, you want to add something? Say, we can hear.
Actually, that is true. Article 21 have give you the right to equality. But recently in 2026 CCA, Citizen Amendment Act, the community, those who are being marginalized, right? And like the Sikh, the Muslims and other communities, they have to be prerogative to this constitution or to our India as per the new CCA. So as this topic is related to our subject, and I'm a social science student, right? So I just had to listen the feedbacks, and I really appreciate the today's seminar. And according to the CCA, Citizen Amendment Act, any community, those who are being marginalized, they can get the citizenships of India. We should not be think that he is Muslims or he is that Christian or he is that any other community. And one more question also we have discussed in the previous sessions about when the content or anything else being depicted in the social media, how that have to be transformed to the society and how you have to be rectify it. That is one mechanism that right to delete that content in the Supreme Court. And if anyone to be circulate in the society, that have to be denied. That have not to be displayed in that social media. One incident also took place in Ghaziabad. That time three of the sisters, they took self-suicide by coincidence of their family. So immediately Supreme Court decided that the content should be deleted from the context so that the message should not be go to that one. So all the mass media should be banned under the age of 16. Thank you.
Thank you for your inputs. Thank you very much.
Now the Western world is treating Asian, Southeast Asian, and India as a xenophobia. Okay. How does the contemporary cultural world is shaped by this new form of xenophobia? All right. This is an interesting question, that, for example, if you look at the new form of xenophobia, it reshapes the contemporary cultural world in several important ways. One is, you can say, the crisis of multiculturalism. So multiculturalism or multicultural societies, the historical transnational nationalism, how the online spaces, we find that the online spaces play a huge role for the spread stereotypes and fear. At the same time, we also notice that the diasporic communities, they also mobilize globalism against racism. So when we say the contemporary xenophobia, especially with the Chinese or the East Asia, they show that globalization has not eliminated boundaries, but transformed them. So migration today that we see, it continues to produce new forms of exclusion, proving that belonging remains politically contested. So you might say that we are quite inclusive in nature, but however, there are different forms of exclusion that we notice in the present times, and that I think is quite essential to address. I hope I answered your question, Dr. Sahu.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You have. You have. So it's now trying to sum up both the speakers. It's my duty to sum up and break it down for my students who have been listening attentively, although they are showing that they are listening attentively. So in the first speaker talked about various aspects of identity and ideology, how they mix up, and how it is framed in the third world countries, especially Arab literature. Rightly pointed out by one of our students, where he had chosen is to be part of his research interest because nobody is talking about it. And what is the takeaway points from his session, from his deliberation? First, we need to bring a lot of stories from the Arab world so that our impressions, our stereotypes, our biases towards them will change. And there is a world which is still unexplored by us, which we can explore through literature, and that is what I call subjective history. So, it is what we learn. As we said, he has listed out to read. We can start with My Name is Salman. And I also believe that in future, if we are going to revise this minority literature that we are introducing in the paper, we can use one of these texts in the syllabus also, which can be this Arab world. Only we are teaching this 100,000 nights, something like that. It is very, I'll not say realistic, but in a very different way we are teaching that. That is our takeaway points from each presentation. Fantasy literature we are only limited. And that's why we tell that whenever we see anybody from the Arab world, you have a well where we can get control. This kind of questions. Isn't it? So from Dr. Citizenship, she very nicely talked about the different levels of migration. First at the level of missionaries. How religions or thoughts which started in this part of the world, especially Buddhism, and then Islam, Hinduism, it traveled to different parts of the world, missionary activities. And then the second level, indentured levelers, they were taken to Jamaica and different parts of West Africa and different parts of the world. And then most of the skilled levelers who traveled on their own to the European world and with
better life and livelihood. And all these kind of transaction or migration that have taken place between East and the West, it has led to some kind of a new kind of literature has emerged, and that she projected on those lights. And this also led to different kind of, as while she was answering my question, it has led to some kind of phobias also, xenophobias. Recently, there is a prevalent called xenophobia. Asians are hated in European countries after this pandemic, because China is held responsible for the COVID-19 virus. So Asians not only come to it's a new form of colonialism is also starting. A new colonialism is going on, and it is also reshaping, in a culturally diverse world, in a globally connected society. So very interestingly, she deliberated upon, and she also highlighted some of the writers who have emerged from these diasporic experiences and how alienation has led to nostalgia in their writing, which she was focusing in her deliberation. So thank you very much for your patient listening. Definitely you have been with us after having a very heavy lunch. Thank you very much, and wish you a wonderful, another plenary session which is going to unfold and which will be chaired by the head of the department, Major Dr. Jaydev Sao. So stay here because the tea has been served over here, so no need to move out. In case you want to go to the lavatory, you can go. Feel free to go. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, madam. Hope I am still audible to you. Thank you for giving your time and joining us. So the session is over here. So stay connected. If you want to, we'll definitely send your certificate by post, and also the soft copy we'll send by a mail also. Thank you very much, madam. Thank you for being part of this session.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, ma'am. Now, I would like to request Dr. Umesh Chandra Satpathy, sir, to felicitate the chair and the speaker of the session. Please, sir. As we come to the close of plenary session 2, I have the honor of proposing the vote of thanks. Respected dignitaries on the dais, distinguished speaker, honored guests, and participants. I extend my sincere appreciation to our Vice Chancellor in charge, Madam Dr. Nivedita Nath, for her encouragement and support. I also extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Gunanidhi Naik, Registrar, Dr. Major Dr. Jaydev Sao, sir, Deputy Registrar, and for his unwavering support and guidance. I express my sincere thanks to our esteemed guest of honor, Dr. Bhavani Shankar Negi, Syndicate Member, MMU. We are immensely grateful to our distinguished plenary speakers and resource person. I'd like to thank our chair, Mr. Sanjeev Kumar Sahu, Assistant Professor, Mahamanikeshwar University, for presiding over this session. I place on record my appreciation for our speaker of the session, Dr. Debabrata Das, Assistant Professor at the Department of English, Ravindra Bharati University, Kolkata, and Dr. Shirisha Telugu, Assistant Professor in the Department of English at the University of Hyderabad, for their distinguished address. The session has greatly benefited from your expertise. We are truly grateful for your valuable time and intellectual contribution. I acknowledge the presence and participation of all delegates and scholars whose engagement contributed to the academic vibrancy of this session. I also recognize the efforts of the organizing team and the technical team for ensuring the smooth conduct of this program. With this, I conclude my vote of thanks. Thank you.
Jaya Ma Manikeswari. Respected dignitaries, distinguished speakers, esteemed faculty members, these are scholars, students, and dear participants, those who are joining both offline and online. I'm Mr. Amarendra Mohanty, PhD scholar, Faculty Department of English, Ma Manikeswari University. And it is my privilege to serve as the introducer for this intellectual session, plenary session 3. It is my proud honor to introduce and invite our chair, Major Dr. Jadhav Sahu sir. I will also invite our speaker, Professor Ranjit Kumar Pati sir, Head Department of English, JIT University. Please, sir. Our second speaker, Professor Bipin Pal Singh sir, is joining online, who is the head of the department, Central University of Punjab, Bathinda. It is my privilege to introduce the chair of this session, who needs no introduction, but for the formality, for the as a part of the procedure, I introduce the chair, Major Dr. Jadhav Sahu, an eminent academician and multifaceted personality who joined Odisha Education Service in July 1999, marking the beginning of a distinguished journey in academia. Over the years, he has served Ma Manikeswari University in various esteemed capacities, such as academic brochure, chairperson of the Postgraduate Council, deputy registrar, and head of the Department of English. As an scholar, Dr. Sahu has presented 24 research papers in various national and international seminars and has published 15 papers in reputed journals and edited volumes. He is the editor of the book Vulnerability and Resilience, Perspectives from Language, Literature and Culture, which reflects his intellectual depth and critical insight. As a creative writer, he has published a notable collection of plays titled Mote Ji Darkar Ji Diya O Taj Mahal, showcasing his command over dramatic art and social commentary. A gifted playwright, director and columnist and orator, Mr. Sahu's contribution extends far beyond this academia. His essays, around 13 numbers, have been featured on the editorial pages of leading ODR dailies, addressing the wide range of social, cultural, and literary issues with thought-provoking clarity. In addition to his academic achievements, Dr. Sahu has made exemplary contribution to the National Cadet Corps. As a major in NCC, he has been recognized as the best associate NCC officer of Odisha for the year 2021 and was also honored with the prestigious Director General's commendation for his exceptional services and dedication to the organization. He has been supervising 2 PhD scholars at present, and the Sahu has is serving now as the head of the Department of English and Deputy Registrar at Ma Manikeswari University, Manikya Vihar, Bhavani Patna. As a scholar, leader, and motivator, Dr. Sahu continues to inspire countless students and colleagues through his intellect, and I feel privileged that we are the part of that, and his creativity and unwavering commitment to education and national services. Thank you, sir, for presiding as a chair. I feel privileged to introduce our first speaker of this plenary session, Professor Ranjit Kumar Pati sir, Head Department of English, GIT University, Gunpur. He joined the Odisha Educational Service on 13 January 1982 and served with distinction for more than 37 years in several reputed government colleges of Odisha, including Rajendra College, Balangir, Fakir Mohan College, Baleswar, and SKCG College, Parlakemandi. He retired from government services in June 2019 as a professor of English. At present, he is a professor of English in the Department of English, School of Humanities and Social Science, Gandhi Institute of Engineering and Technology, University, Gunpur. Dr. Pati obtained his MA in English from Sambalpur University in 1980 and MA in History from IGNOU. Thereafter, he was awarded his Doctor of Philosophy in English by Sambalpur University in 1998. During his academic career, Dr. Pati organized 5 national seminars in English at SKCG College, Parlakemandi, serving as both convener and organizing secretary. He has actively participated in 22 international, 18 national, and 14 state level seminars, presenting research papers of scholarly merit. His publication includes 25 papers in International Journal, 10 papers in National Journal, and 2 book chapters. As a dedicated research supervisor, Dr. Pati has successfully guided 9 PhD scholars from Berhampur University and 1 scholar from Utkal University of Culture and 1 scholar from GIT University, who have all been awarded doctoral degrees under his mentorship. He is a distinguished member of several professional and academic associations, including the English Language Teachers Association of India, Chennai, the Indian Association of Teachers of English as a Foreign Language, England, and the Comparative Literature Association of India, Kolkata. He is also a life member of the Forum of English Studies in India and the Association for English Studies in India. Dr. Pati is widely respected for his contribution to English studies, literary scholarship, and language teaching, and continues to inspire students and researchers through his academic excellence and mentorship. Today, his lecture promises to offer deep insights into how literature becomes a powerful medium to reimagine the nation through the lived experiences, culture, and collective memory of marginalized community. We will be delivering on his talk on the topic, Negotiating the Nation, a reflection on unity through culture and literature of Dalit and tribes of India. With this, I request our speaker to begin his speech. Welcome, sir.
Honorable Chair of the session, the organizer of this excellent national seminar, my thanks goes to the Honorable Vice Chancellor of this university and fellow organizers, my fellow speakers, the other faculty members, and employees of this university, and my dear students. Now, I have carefully used a very small word, a reflection in my presentation, which I wish to put as brief as possible. And why I say as brief as possible, your coordinator knows pretty well. I expect it to be over before lunch, because I have a kind of religious function day after tomorrow going to, this is very personal, of course. to Chennai, that Jyotirling, Rameshwaram and so on. Anyway, but that doesn't fail me from satisfying your expectations. Now, before I go through whatever few points I wish to have in my mind, let me take your attention to this title. If you look at this, it's a very broad one. This seminar is a very broad one, multifarious, having different angles to focus. The first point I wish to draw your attention, rather it's my suggestion. This should have been an interdisciplinary seminar, not only English. If you look at the connotation or the things that the seminar carries with it, the topic carries, it is less English, more sociology and political science and so many things. And in this context, I am rather tempted to speak one word on this, or one line on this, that gone are those days when we are students, English is not totally changed, literature, In most of the universities, those stalwarts, let us take the case of Shakespeare or modern GBS, Bernard Shaw, or who he or she may be. These are all passing names now. The focus is now shifted to some other areas. You cannot omit Shakespeare or Wordsworth from your references. They are supposed to be there all the while, but less focus on them. So what I would like to tell, that the shifting has been done in literary history. So we the old timers, I'm now 66. We the old timers, for us, literature is totally different, and it is also equally challenging for us to master the latest trends in English literature and so on. Okay? This is a change everywhere, not in literature or this topic concerned. About this topic, in the morning, your VC has already made the points very clear about the title and so on in the inaugural one. My suggestion, or I would like to draw your attention, if you can dissect the topic. Let us say nationality, nationalism, this one, global world, another, negotiation is another. Then we come to the straight citizenship, all these things. Okay? And last one, of course, literature and media and so on. You find further interpretations. I am not going to all these details. My focus is to have a kind of perfect angle in the sense. We say nationalism. Is it narrow nationalism or nationalism in true sense of term? So narrow nationalism is the real sense. We say nationalism, but in mind, we believe in narrow nationalism in the sense of regionalism. My focus is on Indian context. Okay? Even if we say that we are so great in we believe in nationalism and so on, but the regional pull or the things that we have in mind deviates from national unity, which is not a good sign, of course. In this context, let me again take you to our inaugural, from Hyderabad, he told one word, which is always very exciting in the Sanskrit word, Vasundhaiva Kutumbakam. India can do this. India has passed this message to the world that we believe in unity. Okay? So anything is possible in Indian context, even if it is diversity of culture, language, and so on. Now, in this context, again, let me draw your attention to the same title before I go through my own observation. Is it nationalism based on national spirit, based on culture, based on linguistic unity, and so on? What I mean, this nationalism or nationality in particular has been changing its form gradually nowadays. As a nation, by the term nation, what we mean is a different now. If it's a linguistic nation, one connotation, which is feasible or not, the second point. If it's a cultural annotation, still more a point to either ponder on whether if it's feasible or not. So it's a very broad term. Let us find out how far can it be feasible taking that Sanskrit word, Vasundhaiva Kutumbakam. Now, I have some observations, somewhere because most of my speeches are extempore, no doubt. I will not bore you because we do not have that kind of PowerPoint things in our mind. These are the latest trends. So whatever we have gathered from different things and so on, I have just made a note of all these things. Okay. Now about the feasibility of this thing, whether this nationality, nationalism is whether it's really possible in Indian context or not. Very much possible. I'm very optimistic, to frank enough. Not only I, most of the speakers, most of the great persons, they believe that it's very, because that is why we are Indians. We still live in India. We believe in Indians. At that time, we forget that we are Telugu or Odia or XYZ. Now, about the things that we can find about the feasibility of these things, which very much feasible, as I have told you, being an optimistic observer. Okay. Now, you see, in the era of globalization, it is possible in India, I repeat. Now, let us see about the cultural things, about the language or social custom, festival or mannerisms. If you take these things of India into consideration, we think there is an interesting message behind this. I shall come to that one. Okay. So, the interesting observation is that binding diverse society through shared meanings, values, emotional connections, we find it is feasible. It is the harmony without imposing uniformity. A harmony is created automatically in Indian context. So no question of forceful doing these things. If you believe in Indian as a nation, India as a nation, these things automatically rises in your mind. When you come the yesterday's match between India and Pakistan, what we find? We forget our difference and we say we are Indians. So that one spirit is there. That spirit must prevail everywhere. Okay? And let us take the cultural cohesion, which is another means to bring this kind of unity and so on. Now here we find the vast food or language emits that the shared cultural practices such as Diwali and Holi. I think one of the speakers has told about how Holi is now also recognized in California. Sorry, Diwali is recognized in California. In the morning, he is shown in that slide. The Holi is acknowledged in America also as a kind of festival to be observed and so on. So these are the things where we forget our differences. So you see how culture through Holi and Diwali and all such typical functions, even you find Muslim also, Hindus also smear color on the Muslims. That is possible very much because it's in India. We believe in it in diversity. Now let us take the language and communication process, which is also one of the means which can bring this kind of national unity in the true sense of the term. Okay. Now, as far as national language is concerned, I will not go to all this confused, debatable point of Hindi being national language, but Hindi is still having a kind of role to unite in Indian context. But role of English cannot be ignored. And you see, our freedom struggle is only possible through English. Can you think of in those days, one speaker speaking Tamil, the other one speaking Hindi, the other one speaking Telugu and XYZ. Nobody can rather go into the deeper sense of their unity. So it is English which has made the freedom struggle very much possible. So that is one of the best contribution of Britishers. Though if the English have done nothing, yes, English has done a lot of things about our unity and so on. Okay. Now I have already told you about cultural exchanges and so on. It fosters a spirit of tolerance and mutual appreciation. It's a fact. Even if we believe in difference of caste and creed and so on, still there is a kind of spirit that runs underneath. Okay. So it fosters a spirit of tolerance and mutual appreciation for cohesive study or cohesive society. No doubt, at times differences may come out. So whatever is it prevails in the inner sense and so on. Now let us take to some other areas. Okay, about the latest syllabus in the universities. Latest means it is all over 20 or 30 years and so on. Comparative literature. Okay, why this comparative literature is a kind of major focus these areas in these days. Through this area, we can find regional literature can come to the limelight of international level. So you see, each and every, that has come gradual now. So each and every regional literature, each and every literature of its culture needs a kind of to be exposed, an exposure through English translation and so on. And also parallelly comparative approach. So that's why I find Fakirmon's literature in Odia is now compared with your Charles Dickens society. See, Dickens is in England and Fakirmon writing same time here in Odisha. But you find some kind of, even at times, the critics opine that it is very difficult to say who is greater or greatest. It is very difficult, but this Fakirmon even at times is in certain areas is greater than Charles Dickens. So that is a debatable point. We will not go to this, but this point is, yes, comparative study is definitely one of the factors. Now let me come to the other two areas, which I now want to draw your attention about tribal as well as Dalit literature. If you go deeply, in most of these studies, in cases, majority of issues are common. Not all, but majority I say. Okay? So let me find out what are the usual things we find in this Dalit and tribal literature parallelly. Okay? Now first point that comes to my mind, who are the real writers of Dalit literature and tribal literature? Shall we say that Gopinath Mahanti is one of the best tribal literary artists of writing Mati Matal? Can we say that Mulkalar Anand is one of the best writers who can be treated as Dalit writer? It is debatable, no doubt. But my opinion that certainly not. They are not Dalit or tribal writers. They have written on those writings, written on those concepts, written on the vivid. If you go to Mati Matal, you will feel very bored at times because there is a kind of description about 5 to 6 pages on the dead palm trees construction end. So the vividness is the point of concentration. Okay. So that is what I used to tell, that these writers are not certainly the great. They should not come under this category of Dalit and tribal literary artists. Though they have written, they have excelled, no problem. I do admit. Now we find when the research things are going on, we will find these names are secondary. Okay. Now, about the tribal thing that I have told you categorically, because again, through tribal, one interesting observation, I had been to Simlipal few weeks back. I am native of Mayurbhanj, though I have not stayed there. So I have seen the Santal life and so on. You see, the Santal life, one interesting thing that I was reminded, I often cite this one, the typical calculative system. Okay, how they calculate 1 to 10. If Santal, those who have any idea, they can also, they might have heard. You say, let me count 1 to 10. Akne, dukne, tinke, chekne, reng, cheng, bania, gundu, sena, tana. They speak in a music way, 1 to 10. So what I mean, the calculative system, the music itself of tribal are equally important. Very exciting also. The music, the instrument, all these are equally important. And the tribals claim, that is interesting, they claim that Jagannath is ours. Partially correct. If you go back to the history of Lord Jagannath's temple by Vishwabasu and so on, how they have been brought them, they claim Ramchandra is our God. Why? How many of the persons go with a bow and arrow and roam around in the jungles? Only tribals can roam. They claim that. So if you go deep, you see how they behave. And they said, we are the real ancestor of India. And they're having some logic behind that. That seems, okay? So what we usually find in their writings. So I've told you, the definition of nation has been changing. So this has come to limelight now. So we can say this will also bring kind of unity in this, forming a nationality of recognizing or bringing upwards the tribals in general. Okay? What they believe? Jal, Jamin and jungle. Yes, that we know. But that is their basic focus and so on. Then resistance identity. It is a kind of very old and very serious issue. Always there. They have been believing in resistance and they have been believing recognition of identity. Okay? They think that we are equally important. As I've told you, Ramchandra is ours, they say. Jagannath is ours, they say. They want some sort of identity of their own. Okay? Whether that value, that is different one. You see, the belief going on, that is what the reality I am now presenting before you. Okay? And if I certainly women writers of the tribal, okay, the women perspectives, same one also prevails in our Odia or other Hindi literature. Same thing prevails, but their issues is more serious in nature. Okay? And more important is their oral and written tradition parallel. Oral was basically, written tradition came later on. Okay? So their songs, music, dance, as I have told categorically. Yes, you might have heard a song which is very popular a few months ago, Marang Buru song. It might be also here, Marang Buru, that mountain is their god. With very music, I think it's from this Bhavanipatna, I think, Kalandi it has originated, Marang Buru song. It is very popular and very beautiful musically. It is now composed. Okay? So, the Santhal county, I have told you. Let me be as brief as possible. Okay? So, this is basic thing that the tribal as well as Dalit parallelly. In Dalit, they are having the same problem. That shall come gradually time within 2 or 3 minutes. So, what about the persons who have been rather champion? I think you know the person who is very much from Palahandi. That is, who is that man? Akhil Naik from Department Odia, I think. Okay. So he is the man who has written this kind of Beda or something, sort of that book. He is recognized. Okay. And I come to about the tribal literary artist. The very popular, you know, Hardharna from Sambalpur, very popular. He always telling that I have read up to 2.5 letters. Adhi akhara loko se kohchandi. Adhi mane that 2.5, that is what he has been taught in his school days. Up to that, he has been there towards class 3 or 4, not more than that. It is just like your the persons opposed notes again that they have not passed even BA or graduation or even matriculation, but that topics are taught in PG. Now, sir, very quickly, I go to those few who have rather made the tribal. It is very popular in Odisha. That is almost Santar, Damayanti, Besra. These are the names very popular, we find. Then Hembram, we find that Charan Hembram. Then we find Tudu. So one entry that I was tell, they have inscribed that, did the Olchiki that later. And we find Kondha letter, that is Olchiki. Then Kui letters. All these things are now recognized at national level, and they have formed their books also. Take the case of national level, I will not go into details. If we find also the names connote the real suffering of the people of what they want to play. For example, this Kerketa of Jharkhand, Jacinta Kerketa, he has written that book, Angor. Okay, interesting, it is published or translated in German, Italian, French. Okay, and we find the points, I will not go all to details. One Bandhana Tete is their own writer in Hindi, Panchkot Ki Rani. Okay, so what? So many writers are there. Okay, so that in detail, yes, one. This is about Dalit. Om Prakash Bhalmiki, on which I find so many research work have been going on, and one of the most important autobiography, Jhutan. So this it must tells what might the content, how they are treated as Jhutans. One thing you must know that when during the British period, the tribals have been treated as if they are cheats. They are all, man of non-recognition. They are thieves. In that way, that was the term, the treatment given to the tribals during British period. Okay? So see, in British period, Indian nationality, if it is there, no tribal find a place. Now I find tribals also find, though not dominated, also find a place. So my essence of presenting you that this tribal as well as the writers, they have tried their best to bring their real suffering, their word, their art to the limelight, so that we can find they also play a major role in this development of nation, United Nation. You cannot say that you are different, then we find that unity will not be feasible. So This is a field definitely which is essential if we believe in nationality as a unit, union one as a kind of unit and so on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now it is time to introduce our second plenary speaker, Professor Bipin Pal Singh, Head Department of English, Central University of Punjab, Bathinda. Dr. Bipin Pal Singh is a professor and head, CUPB Punjab. He is also the director of Interdisciplinary Center for Language and Literary Studies of CU Punjab. Professor Singh has delivered lectures at many prestigious national and international conferences and seminars. He has received 2 research projects. One has been completed and one is ongoing. He has published more than 26 journals, papers in the journals, 8 book chapters, and published 2 books, and guiding 5 PhD scholars, and one has been awarded the degree. Professor Singh has published many articles in different journals, as I say, which includes journals like Atlantic Literary Reviews, Journals of Contemporary Thoughts, Literary Endeavors, International Journal of English Language, Sodh Samiksha or Mulyankan, Chintan, and many more. He has also published 2 books of profound literary importance, Franz Kafka's and Critical Theory for Decolonization, and the another one, Landmarks of English Literature. He has published these 2 books with more than 26 years of teaching experience, including the areas of his interest, post-colonial studies, literary and critical theories, and cultural studies. Now I invite the speaker who will be speaking on the topic Discourses of Globalization and Cultural Identity. Discourses of Globalization and Cultural Identity. So we extend our heartfelt welcome to you, sir. Looking forward for you this illuminating thoughts. Welcome, sir.
representation, how identities are formed. It's not just ethnic or religious or national identities and others. The last 4 or 5 decades, what we have seen, especially after 1991, we saw the collapses of USSR after that, global forces, Western forces, expanding their horizons, and with that, changing paradigms of identity formation, how it is constituted, how it is interpreted. These are some of the very interesting issues. Now, in the context of globalization, what I would like to say that certain ideologies which have the capacity to transcend the boundaries of nations or other micro-level articulated issues, these are by and large supported by technological advancements and media space. Besides that, market forces, the corporate, the corporate, and the problematic relationship between the state and the global forces, these are some of the factors which certainly determine identity formation. Alongside that, language is certainly something very important, which intrinsically connects the personal, the national, and the ethnic identities. So these are some of the issues on which I would like to focus on. But first of all, the term identity is something very important, because these days the term is a part of the critical rubric, and it has become a term on which there are much discussions and debates. While tracing the origins of the term identity, what I could see is that in the historical traditions of Western philosophy, first of all, there are 2 philosophers, John Locke and David Hume. John Locke is an essay concerning human understanding, and David Hume is essays on the intellectual problems of man. They simply explain or they discussed what it means to be, what it means when we say identity. So generally, in a very simplistic way, what Locke argues, it is essay concerning human understanding. He says that nothing but a participation of the same continued life. Consciousness always accompanies thinking. In this alone consists personal identity. So this is an old classical definition of identity. But it is in the 1950s that for the first time it is Carl Rogers who explains the idea of the concept of one's identity, and by and large it was through his humanistic and psychologist perspective that he took upon. After that, it is Eric Erikson who, in his edited text, Childhood and Society, looks about the issue of identity. And it is since then that there have been multiple explanations, or there is a lot of proliferation in explaining this term, and it is across various disciplines and critical perspectives that the term identity has been pitched to. So we can say that there are various vectors of identity constitution, and identity can be appended to various other issues of context. So for instance, we can say cultural identity, or racial identity, or ethnic identity, religious identity, sexual identity, or gender identity. So we can append the issue of identity with certain other issues, and we convert these diametrically opposite positions. So sometimes it is globalization versus localization. Other times it is globalization type of phenomena. From a cultural perspective of identity, which by and large refers to local identities, certain issues play a very important role, and these are the issues of culture, language, religion, location, and values. Certainly, all of these are very important. For instance, in the context of India, we look about things. Culture plays certainly very important role in homogenizing, giving a cohesive shape. Alongside that, the issue of language, it plays a very important role. But the issue of religion is there. Certainly, religion, especially institutionalized religion, organized religion, how religious identities are evoked, and many times also leads to religious hatred or religious boundaries, which is probably unfortunate, but it happens. When identity is connected to religion, and it is I can say used to fuel up certain other ulterior motives. Now, by and large, construction of cultural identity is deeply associated with what I would like to say a reification of culture. By and large, Karl Marx has deeply explained this whole concept of reification, which becomes that a very defining feature of the dominant discourse on identity. I can say that the process of attributing concrete form to certain abstract concepts, or put it very simply, as social consciousness in which human nations come to be identified with the physical properties of things, and thereby that acquires an appearance of naturalness. So, this concept of reification Marx used to explain that why workers accepted their labor and wages and considered this kind of exploitation as natural. So, when we come to the issue of cultural identity, what I would like to say is there is a kind of tension between the national and the global. But before coming to this issue, there are 6 issues which are of importance when we come to the issue of identity. And it is the context of one's national identity. The first one is that there is a collective property. Second is a myth of common ancestry. The third is shared historical memories. Fourth, one or more differentiating elements of common culture. Fifth, an association with a specific homeland. And sixth, a sense of solidarity for significant sectors of population. So these are the 6 issues on which national identities are constituted. And if we look about all these 6 issues, in the last 30 or 40 years, but we can see that there is certainly a kind of tension between shaping cultural identities. Uh, and in that context, what comes to my mind is the case study of Canada. So Canada provides a powerful example of the relationship between language and identity. Ever since the founding of Canada as a nation in 1867, English and French languages, these two languages have been officially acknowledged as their primary languages. And it is fair to say that Canadian identity for their citizens involves being a member of a bilingual state. Although most Canadians are not in fact bilingual English and French speakers, nevertheless, Canadians accept a bilingual Canada as part of their national reality. In 2012, there was a report from the Office of the Commissioner for Official Languages which shows that 72% of Canadians favor bilingualism. And in 2016, Nielsen poll showed that 86% of Canadians believe that the Prime Minister should be bilingual. So, in the later part of 20th century, Canadian government spent a considerable amount of time grappling with issues of bilingualism and forging policies to address these concerns. So, this is a case study of Canada, where language played that kind of important role in identity formation. Now, coming to the issue of global cultural identities, since 1980s, but we see that there are parallel social, political, economic, and technological forces which have impacted the world. On the one side, what we see is the process of globalization which has affected each and every aspect of life. And
morning negotiation. In the absence of Mr. Sir. So, yes, sir, this principal sir got disconnected in between. I will take privilege to request Ranjit Pati sir to felicitate our register, Dr. Gunandri Naik sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Economic, political, social, or technological forces. For the last 40 or 50 years, these have been impacting the world, and certainly these are playing very important role in identity formation. But alongside that, the process of globalization is affecting everything, uh, and we can see complete transformation and reaffirmation of nation building and cultural identities, both locally and globally. These are taking place. The globalizing forces, with their capacity to culturally homogenize, certainly have posed a potential threat to local cultures and specific identities. This is because of globalization is basically perceived to be generating a global cosmopolitan culture, and it is based upon cultural homogenization. At the same time, due to certain dominant political religious ideologies, some nations are keen to preserve their historically defined identities, which are based upon their nationalities or languages or ethnicity or religion. So this has resulted in a kind of tussle or tension between the local and the global in the context of identity formation. One of the most significant forces of globalization which shapes cultural identity is information technology and mass media. Every facet of culture and identity is defined by mass media, and it is governed by information technology. It may be global marketing of desirable commodities such as fashion brands or entertainment industry or anything. It is governed by global market forces. And global marketing is affecting the formation of an individual's cultural identity, which has produced a new consumerist society, new consumerist culture, and by and large, what we should say these days, the term that is used in that context, commodification of the self. This is basically happening. So, if we look upon these forces, the relation between the global and the national forces yes, please, I could see your message. Yes, I am winding up. So there is certainly a kind of tussle between these forces, global and the local. So in a nutshell, what I would like to say is that identity should be better acquainted with the world crisis, identity crisis. Because with reference to identity, what we can say that in this era of globalization, we can see multiple identities, and this has certainly led to a kind of identity crisis. So the concept of anti-crisis is certainly influenced by the idea of alienation too, which is deeply discussed by Karl Marx in his Communist Manifesto. So there are many discourses and debates pertaining to identity, and in this era of globalization, there are multiple vectors and the forces which are constituting identities are certainly globalization, ideologies, our mass media, technological advancements. These are certainly shaping identities. Every facet of culture and identity is defined by mass media, and it is propelled by information technology and certain cyberspace platforms, global marketing forces which are interested in promoting desirable commodities, or the role of the corporate in shaping identities is certainly very important. And I would like to conclude with just a brief reference that comes to my mind to Frederick Jameson's cultural logic of late capitalism, where he argues that in post-modern era there is certainly a symbiotic relation between post-modern culture and the global capital forces which thrive upon each other. So with this, I would like to conclude with thanks to Professor Sahu and Amrita. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request the chair of the session to carry out the discussion and give his valuable remark.
Thank you, Dr. Bipan Pal Singh sir,
For your brilliant delivery.
Hello. Now you are
okay. So thanks a lot, sir. Before my remark, may I ask the audience if they have queries for our plenary speakers, then they may ask the questions. Okay, Sravani Banerjee. Yes, please.
Thank you, sir. My question is to Bipan Pal Singh, sir, that you know that globalizing forces are actually, creating identity for all of us. So, what do you think about those tribes, those people who are beyond, approach, I can say that, like the indigenous tribes of Amazon, or other tribes who are not so much tracked by the media and other communication. So what's your opinion on that? I mean, the identity of those people are, is the identity of those people shaped by this media representation or something else?
This question is for you, sir. Professor Bipan Pal, sir.
was breaking. I couldn't understand. If you please repeat the question. Your voice is clear, but his voice was not clear to me. If you please repeat. Very meaningful, and in that context I would like to say that more than identity, it is the issue of representation which is very important. Who represents? This is one prime question. Whether the indigenous people, they have the capacity to represent themselves or someone else is representing them. So when we come to the issue of representation, when representation is not intrinsic but extrinsic, it is not immanent but transcendental, it is beyond, it's outside that ethnic community, then certainly their identity will be interpolated or shaped by some forces which are not, I can say, part and parcel of that community. Someone else is doing that. So it's instead of saying identity, better to focus on representation. What are the mediums of representation? So better to focus on representation than identity. Because certainly, if the outer world is doing that, it can be either through cyberspace or print media, then these institutions or these spaces, certainly these are connected to certain ideology or power structures. So the issue is to explore that kind of relations. Only then we can come to the issue of identity.
Thank you, sir. Now, Good
evening, everyone. My question to you, Pati sir. So, you said about unity in your presentation. So, I have two questions for you. Does Dalit literature aim for inclusion within the nation or a restructuring of the nation itself? And as you, can unity be meaningful without structural redistribution of power, or does cultural representation alone with symbolic inclusion without material change? Okay, sir. So, can unity be meaningful without structural redistribution of power, or does cultural representation alone risk symbolic inclusion without material change?
No, second one is more practicable. You cannot simply go away. So it is within the cultural change should be there. The what you opine in the second one is the real factual one which we can have unity. Without cultural changes we cannot have. So it is part of the culture. And that culture should be rather recognized one and should come up to the limelight. The things which have been done are not up to that kind of mark of recognition. That's why they are having struggle and so on, and they are claiming that God is ours and these things are ours. So that's a kind of indirect way of revolt, and that's the kind of thing that the reality they have been claiming. Once it is recognized, they want this have this kind of difference of opinion. So cultural changes, it should be included. We should include that one in our culture. The first one.
Does Dalit literature aim for inclusion within the nation or restructuring of the nation itself?
Again, the same one, the first
Similar
one. Within the nation, it should be there. You cannot simply go away, or that will ultimately lead to narrow nationalism or narrow regionalism, which is not the real point if you believe in the national unity. We shall always go beyond that. And national unity is the first interest. As I have cited the example of yesterday's match, India and Pakistan, all of the Indians will think that we are one. Therefore, similarly, we must think that that must be within the national interest and so on, not a kind of restructuring. It should be part of that one.
But nation has become a political agency only now.
No, nation we find, as I told you, there is different meanings coming out about the formation of nation. If we say, if we take language, we find language in certain countries that is the basic essence, but that is not the case in India. I have told you the Indian context. So Indian context, we are, the greatness is that the unity in the diversity. We have been listening to that one, and the real practice is not fully accomplished till date. So that unity should, because cultural exchanges and other examples I have cited. So these are things which unite us. They told you Holi and Diwali. These things it unites. We forget that. Similarly, that kind of recognition ultimately with different of cultures will be parallelly honored, and we don't think we are superior, they are junior. That should not be the case. So recognition must be there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the wonderful presentations. I think both the plenary speakers, Professor Ranjit Kumar Pati sir, Head Department of English, GIT University, Gunupur, Odisha, and Professor Bipan Pal Singh, Head Department of English, Central University of Punjab, Bathinda, Punjab, for his topic, discourses of globalization and cultural identity. Really, both the topics, they connect each other. How? The first topic presented by Professor Pati focuses on the identity, same identity of the Dalits, the tribal people, the marginalized people. And Professor Pati is of the opinion that the identity is not fixed, as described by Professor Singh, who also says that identity is not fixed. And to Professor Pate, this shifting has been done in literature. The notion of nationality is also changing. Nation, nationality, nationalism, all these three words, the notion especially, that is being changed due to the globalization. One question is here that Professor Singh deals with, that identity. Everybody is trying to be identified. Identity. I do remember here a poem which we were teaching to our +2 students, Little Johnny's Final Letter. Most of you might have read that poem. That everybody, even a little child, is trying to have his identity. And because of that, he is missing from the home, and taking a rental home there in the city. So identity crisis is now a big thing. Even a child has been trying to get his identity through the word kaha aham ko aham. And now in the globalized world, we are taking the help of media. Thanks to our friends, journalist friends who are here, that the media is representing the voices, putting forth the voices of the people. That may be marginalized community or or the weaker section of the people. Their voice is being represented, as Professor Singh has said, that representation. For representation, for projection of identity, we need language, that is the discourse. So through discourse, the cultural identity is to be exposed, and that is to be represented through media. So we are highlighting, the media is highlighting the identity, and we are, see, today we discussed the local issue as well as the global issue. The Honorable Prime Minister says that let us be vocal for local. And if we become vocal for local, then that will be global. So look at the shift that Professor Pati was telling. The shifting of nation, the nationality. Many of you disagree that we are Indian. Why disagree? Because you have a different kind of nationality. We assume a different kind of nationality that is broader than the nation, the nationality that used to be in front of us. So, see what happens? Now we are becoming global. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Now we are coming towards that. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And that narrowness will gradually narrow down because of such globalization. So I thank both the professors for their brilliant presentations, beautiful presentation here. Although it was the last session, still I do mark that our audience is still listening very attentively to our speakers. So I thank Professor Singh, to you. See, we got opportunity to connect to you. Bhavani Patna Kalahandi connected with Bathinda, Punjab. So local being connected with the global. It is another case with you, sir. Thank you for giving us your time, which is very valuable for you. But we need your kind support because ours is an infant institution and we have been growing. We aspire to grow with the help of all of you. Thank you, Dr. Pati, Professor Pati, although you have no time and you are very much busy with your other work. Still, you, see, on our request, you traveled from that Gajapati district to this place, and you put forth your suggestion and your point of view. So we are thankful to you. Our university, our Department of English will remain grateful to both of you. Thank you. Thank you, dear audience. And I thank the journalist friends, Kartikeshwar sir and our Sahu sir, who are present, and I saw how attentive they were. And all Dr. Satpathy sir, then Dr. Tapan Ratha sir, and all my colleagues and students, friends. So I thank you. I thank the moderator of the session, my scholar, Mr. Amarendra Mohanty, who beautifully moderated the session. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And see you. We have a cultural program now. Our students have prepared, and I invite everybody to be there. Thank you. See you.
Thank you, sir. Before closing this session, already we're at the end of this session, but before closing, so actually I feel privileged that I call Jaidev Sahu sir is my guru, Guruji, and the one, Bipin Pal Singh sir, whom I consider as my guru, who have guided me, and a father figure like me when I was pursuing my PG in CU Punjab. Uh, More than a teacher, uh, become a he more like a family to me. And I always say that we have a kind of notion that professors are so very, like, they don't pay attention much. But fortunately, I have met such people in my life, especially Bipin Pal Singh sir. I don't remember how many times that I have called, but each and every time I have called him, he received. If he failed to receive, he give a call at the instance he saw my missed call, and it's like, Kaisa Amarendra. And I remember this always that how much he cared, both my guru Jadev Sahu sir and the Bipin Pal Singh sir. And these guidance not only nurture me, also shows me how to become a good teacher, how to become a good guide, how to become a good supervisor also. He has supervised my project during my PG, and I'm working with my next guru, Jadev Sahu sir, as a scholar for the degree, the philosophy of, for the PhD. So getting both these people on a single stage, and also met a notable person, Professor Pati sir, uh, whom I have about him I have listened a lot from Sahu sir. Fortunately, I got this opportunity to meet, not only to meet, to listen from him. And we are so fortunate that in Kalahandi, and especially a very new university is organizing continuously such seminars for this intellectual development, which is not only a change, rather a sign of progress. That yes, we are progressing in a very fast rate. So I thank the organizers, as I say, for taking the initiative. Obviously, we are also the part of that committee. We are also the part of the, but the initiations always brings a, as a change, and that reflects not only the progress, not only the change, and obviously the numbers are few. We are the end of this, and we all are waiting for this cultural night. But we are waiting for our Honorable Vice Chancellor in charge, ma'am, so that he can come and do this our felicitation work. So just wait for some time. And thank you, Bipin sir, also. Again, I say, because I know how much busy you are, but still you gave your consent to be the part of this seminar. Thank you, sir. So now, as our VC madam has already arrived, I now request the Honorable VC ma'am to kindly felicitate our speaker, Professor Ranjit Kumar Pati sir, and the chair of the session, Major Dr. Jadev Sahu sir, to offer the certificate of appreciation to the speaker and the chair. Now to felicitate our chair, the convener of this seminar, Major Dr. Jadev Sahu sir. Thank you so much, VC ma'am, for sparing your time. I just request VC ma'am to give her some valuable remark.
So we are at the end of the first day of the two-day national seminar organized by the Department of English, and I'm so happy that the delegates have traveled a long distance. They have come from Hyderabad, from Calcutta, and from many parts of India and Odisha, and we have many renowned persons, and we have invitations from all over the India. So that's a great, achievement on the part of Department of English, and I hope our students got to know a lot of things about the theme of the seminar, and the same thing I am expecting also tomorrow. So wishing everyone on the Department of English, all the scholars and students, a bright career in future, and it will be followed by a cultural program at the rooftop. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, all the teachers, all the faculty members, dignitaries, the students, volunteers, the organizing members, all the technicians, the technical team, the AKN